for free. And out of the 8, one company added their address and phone number. Then another one added their address, not their phone number. The other 6 didn't add it. One of them had a Google profile, but none of them, so far that last time I checked, they didn't hook up their logo. And only way they can use a 14-day trial is they have to have a logo. So I told them I try to contact them, but they haven't updated it. So that's that. So far that was $50-something. Didn't look like it was a real good investment on that one. But that's marketing.
And what was that? I missed what the marketing stream was.
It's Udemy.
Oh, okay.
UDIMI, I think. People allow you to promote your product service to their email list.
Okay, cool. Because I was thinking you were talking I don't know how it's pronounced, Udemy, but there's a Udemy, there's a an online course platform that's might be pronounced something similar, but this is good to get this discernment. All right, yeah. Good. So you're thinking that is a good investment?
I don't think it's really, unless you got like 1,000 to risk, I wouldn't do it, because none of them, these are supposed to be people trying to get reviews on like Google, etc. And they don't even want to invest like a $5 to $20 logo on Fiverr or something like that. I told them Fiverr, I even gave them some links to maybe some AI stuff. But now if they're not willing to invest, you can get a logo for Fiverr for probably $10, $20 easy, quick. So they're not willing to invest that. They're not going to probably pay that $199 a month for this service after the trial's up. So those are probably just free onlookers just trying to see what they can get for free.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for bringing that in. Yeah. Anything else for just as far as a check-in?
Did you get the email? I did email you back the link to
yeah, I got those. Okay. I got those. I responded back. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Jaquan.
No problem.
Hi, Newman. We're just doing quick check-ins.
Hey.
So
cool.
We still have Zoe and Natalie and you, Newman, to go on check-ins. So if somebody is feeling the impulse to go for it.
I feel like my check-in might tie into the agenda a little, so maybe I'll save it for later.
Okay, perfect.
I can check in. I don't have a whole lot to say, but I'm here. Yeah.
Right on.
That's great.
My check-in is, man, my feet are tired. I went on a long hike yesterday for my birthday up I took the train about an hour out of the city and then hiked around all day, which is really kind of fun. But when you hike to the train and then you hike from the train to the trailhead and then you hike the trail and then you hike back and then you hike back, we did a lot of walking. But it's kicked off the summer season right. I'm feeling rested and I'm feeling renewed from having some really great sort of outdoor nature bathing kind of time. Now I'm ready to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's by way of check-in. Yeah, and HSC specific project management and marketing team stuff going along, relatively well. And going to wrap that project up in a couple of weeks and sort of terminus, like sort of end and begin, like the terminal connection, and see where it takes us.
Cool.
That's pretty exciting.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Newman.
Yeah. How about you, Rob? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll check in and Zoe can do her check-in / lead in.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm just I don't know. I'm feeling a little distressed, I guess, just about the whole thing. And I don't know, I sent off an email and then I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm like, did I don't know, sound, like I don't want to like give the impression that I want to shut the whole thing down, or that I'm like trying to make unilateral decisions, or be like negative, but then, in my mind, then it starts to, like maybe, starts telling stories, about all of that. So, but, and, nevertheless, like those challenges are still here. So, yeah, I'll let like Zoe can lead into the conversation, but as far as my check-in, I'm kind of just coming like, yeah, feeling a little unsure about what path to take and how to like, just take care of myself, like, in the short term.
Right.
And also appreciating that you're all here, and showing up and still wanting to be in the conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I read through the long and the ChatGPT summary, which I thought was really great. I like saw that and I'm like, I had to reread it. I was like, what? And but I was reading it on the train, and yeah, so I'm going back through it, and yeah, let's dig into this. Yeah, I'm looking forward, because it does seem like we kind of go around with it. So thanks for your check-in.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I know. And also on that email, when I like reread it again, I was like, this ChatGPT version it's not great. It just like loses the subtlety, that I think is there in like the real life human situation. So I was a little like,
Did it put like a spin on it? ChatGPT, did it put some kind of like spin on it, or just like, because it would focus on like what it would consider important information. So yeah, it's not able to read the emotional components at all, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah, it's just more like this and that, in like these like sentences, declarative sentences, and I'm like,
just declarative sentences. Nice. Totally. Cool.
But worthwhile.
Yeah. It's a good TLDR for people. Okay. I think it's my turn. Cool.
Yeah.
So to like shine some light on Rob's email, basically last weekend, I had a mini burnout breakdown, and because Rob's awesome and we talk a lot, I just kind of shared everything with him, like, I'm freaking out right now. And I was like, when you're like in that space, you're like, I want to cancel everything and never see anyone ever again because I have no energy for anything. And it was like after a day of like 18 hours of Zoom. And so I wanted to shine some light on my situation, because my situation is really unique and I don't think it'll apply to everyone, which is good. Because what Rob's like worried about that could threaten HSC in us finding good, stable community members and people to join the team. Like maybe my situation's a little more crazy than others because I'm in Brazil and I didn't know I'd be in Brazil for so long due to circumstances, my husband being here, he's Brazilian. And I'm in a very secluded place surrounded by highways, which gets into what Newman was talking about. Hiking is so awesome. And I can't even go for like walks. So I really do feel like Julian Assange. Like I'm in this room all the time. So I realized like, and on top of that, I'm not getting that sweet, stable income yet. I haven't found that job, and that's important because I don't want to be in the red forever. It's the first time in my life that I've been in the red this much because moving here. And I hope that shows like my unique situation doesn't need to be pasted onto everyone else's situation. I think it might be easier to find people, and they're not going to be as crazy and reactive as I am to getting stressed out. But yeah, that's how I've been stressed out lately. But after like freaking out to Rob, I got this whole clarity to think more solutions based, and I spent the rest of the weekend coming up with solutions to like fix my personal life and hopefully have that fix HSC stuff too. And like the first one is just being more strict to like, okay, I'm going to spend this many hours on HSC so I could study Portuguese and not feel like scared every time someone talks to me on this street. Yeah, and I think even, yeah, just setting your goal and being like sticking to it, I think that could help me. And I hope it doesn't like, none of this should rock HSC to the core. But, oh, and on top of that, yesterday, speaking of like hikes, what Newman was saying, because I'm surrounded by highways and I can't just like go for a walk, I made friends with a security guard for a gated community, and he said I could take walks in the fancy gated community. So that's like a game changer for me. I don't need to take a long bus ride, or I don't drive either. So yeah, anyway, so that's huge for me. And I hope my future stress moments won't shake, HSC to the core, or make Rob worried about like existential stuff, But I do think it's a topic we've discussed already. Like we're mostly finding gig work for HSC people, and that's always going to be kind of unstable. And if I'm looking for a stable job, if Rob might be able to take a stable job soon, or if other teammates get a stable job, is that going to, like, how is that going to affect HSC? I don't know. But that's something like we could talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Zoe.
That was long, but I hope it helps.
Yeah, that was not.
Yeah,
That was
freaking out.
not long.
That was not long. I think maybe
It felt like forever.
I think maybe there's an interest. You might have an interesting self, perspective on what's long compared to like, because sometimes I talk for like 10 times longer than that.
That's so funny.
You got to get one of these. Got to get one of these.
Oh my God, that's true. Yeah, that's pretty
Totally.
handy.
This thing will change it. Yeah.
Well,
And
I
then
also just no, you go.
Well, you can save. I'm going to do this for this long, and then you just take the time. It's nice. But I think you were going to give us another solution-based fix, maybe.
Yes, how did you know? That's great. Because I'm excited about this one. I realized that doing handicrafts also like makes me feel so much better about everything. So I'm just doing them all the time, especially during the Zoom meetings now. It's helped in the past few days already, I think. Yeah, chill me out.
Yay.
I've never felt so much like Julian Assange in my whole life.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's horrible. That's house arrest. That's
house
what I believe. Yeah, I guess just to give a little comment right off, but thanks. Feeling like you can get outside, and if you don't, like moving to a new place, like I was just in New York, just moved into New York, and even though it's pretty accessible, it's sort of like, oh, why do I have to go? Why go out? So I've started playing this game. This is sort of by way of check-in, where I get little points, and actually you can turn the points into cash. It's not a lot of cash if you just look at it as like a per hour type of thing. But I move city bikes from one station to the next. And there's this little, have I told you guys about this? Have I told you all about this?
This is interesting.
It's this decentralized autonomous game. It's a corporation, City Bike, but it's something that I somewhat believe in. And you get a little benefit. I mean, they are making profit, and it's cheaper for me to play this game than to hire an employee. All kinds of like bad things, like if I get smashed on the bike, I'm screwed. If I, whatever, I'm screwed. But it's a great incentive for me 4 times a day to get out and move one of these bikes around. And it goes to your point of like, oh yeah, I can take a 30-minute like outside break and play this. It's a game, and get kind of incentivized to do it. There's a reason for me to do it. Yeah.
You ride the bike from station to station?
Well, I mean, you don't have to. Sometimes I'll walk it. Today I forgot my helmet, and I walked my girlfriend up to the bus stop, and she's like, oh, I thought you'd bring your helmet and ride the bike. I was like, well, I probably ride the bike. She's like, well, you need a helmet to ride, and I was like, you're right. So I just walked it off the sidewalk. Because sometimes it's just like 2 blocks away. You don't have to go for long rides.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool endeavor in one that's sort of getting outside but then it's also a cool, like, we are a decentralized workforce, and we take these little micro gigs, and there's just insight there. There's just insight there.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. And then, like, because we could, as workers, as these, what they're called, bike angels, which is kind of fun. I mean, we could like get together and really fuck the system, or play games with them, like we could like move all the bikes in one area, or like, point trade, or do, like we could help each other. We could work cooperatively, as opposed to, like, I don't know. And then, I'm all on the science fiction tip. I listen to podcasts and stuff. And so I was thinking like, oh yeah, like if we worked in teams, we could make it kind of competitive and or collaborative. Like we could go us versus them, and like hack the system, and get access to the API, and build a better interface, and get better data, and anyway, I do think that it's relevant to HSC because we are sort of decentralized, and we're trying to figure out how to cooperate and build a better mousetrap that's better than doing freelance on your own, and doing, or trying to build out big teams when you don't really know anyone. And so, yeah, I mean, maybe that's, that whole idea of like stable jobs, because I think that's like a key goal. It's just like, yes, if you work from job to job and you don't have a stability over a long term, I think there is a way to get people together and generate value and make it worth, generate value such that it's worth to kind of come and put in time and effort into the centralized group. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also like talking about incentives, is a good piece that goes along with all of that. Yeah, and I think, to just sort of segue from there, I think that's really kind of the issue that's, that's at the forefront. Well, okay, or maybe like what Newman's talking about. Oh yeah, it's the issue, but like is how to get there, I think, is the issue, because I agree with Newman. I still agree that there is a way to have a group of people, a group of freelancers or independent contractors or entrepreneurs. That's something that's been coming in the last couple of days, because like sometimes freelancers are entrepreneurs too, like I'm a solo entrepreneur and I have a marketing automation business, and yeah, I can just look at myself as a freelancer, but I'm also, that's my business. I'm making money that way, and then sometimes that person gets successful and they hire a team, of like 1 or 2 people. So I think that the idea, like the base idea, still works, just as Newman was saying, which is like you get a group of people, that are working collaboratively together, rather than just on their own, as freelancers, and it's going to have more benefit than working on its own. I think that the challenge that we're seeing is how to get it to that group point, whatever that level of critical mass is, that the group benefit is happening, and I think that, with the group now, we're seeing that, like, that's when I've been talking about like feeling it and more and tangibility, like I can see and I can feel the benefit already, but it's not yet like leading to, stable, income or paying jobs. And so, how to get there. And, for me, right, how to like, what do I need to do to support myself, while it's getting there? So those are the kind of the questions. And yeah, and I just want to name that, like, this whole time, which, has been a little while now, like Zoe has been, with me on this and like a real true ally, I just, so much like appreciation, in my heart, for Zoe and our conversations, because they do help to move things forward as far as like shining the light on where are the snags, where are the issues, where, and so I think, that's right, that like this past weekend, it came up, this came up, I think even before your breakdown, but, it was like, it was basically when I think it was like when I brought up the conversation, right? So Zoe is going to do some work for someone, a client that I brought in, who I'm not going to be working with any longer. So I brought in the conversation. I'm like, okay, well, what, like of your hourly rate, does Holistic Systems get any? And it's not, right, the conversation wasn't to try and, get money from Zoe. It was really to say like, okay, well, what is that? Like, what would that look like, And I think, that was helpful because it helps shine the light on like the amount of like work that I'm doing still, as far as like building and selling and coordinating and all of that, and not making any money from it, which is not like the not making money is like, that's the on the ground problem, for me, but that's not like that's not the thing that I care about. Like, I love what I'm doing. Like, I love bringing people in and like, working with everybody and, guiding stuff and working with Maggie and, and training people and this and that. Like, it's great. But at this point, it doesn't pay anything. And then it takes away from what I can do to make my own, income, which there's choices there. And right. And Zoe, right, it also helps to know, like, Zoe is sort of helping to like shine a light on like what HSC as far as team members, what our like ideal, customer would be. Because, like ideally Zoe would like to have like a stable, like a job, be like an employee of somebody. And that's not actually me. Like I want to do everything I can to like never be an employee. And so, right, so I'm more of that like, freelancer for life, kind of person, which might be more like the ideal, customer. I think if you get to that, if you get to a point of scale within the group, then it doesn't really matter, because people, because Zoe wants to come in and have gig work and do, 10, 15 hours. And she, that if the group is at scale, then it can accommodate everybody.
Right.
But since it's not, and so I think that the reason that I had my little freak out, and thank you, Zoe, for owning yours, and I'll say my, was the idea, was just these conversations that we're having. So I had this conversation with Zoe, and it's like, I don't like, like if we, if we're working on a job, like if I'm starting to sell services, right? Okay, and I'm going to say this too, because I think this is the key for me of like where we got to, is that Zoe and I were on the cusp, like we're doing great work. We're on the cusp of launching out Holistic Systems social media.
Mm-hmm.
But what I said to myself was, whoa, like, can we start actively promoting it? The services that we don't have, because say Zoe gets a job like next week, then we no longer have social media. And then, Newman, I had this conversation with you, and can I share about Iceland and all of that?
Yeah, go ahead.
A conversation with Newman, which again was really helpful. And this is good. This is just like us communicating, which I appreciate, like there's no right or wrong, saying, that he's going to, he's traveling to Iceland with his dad, like I think in July, towards the end of July, which is very exciting, very cool. And then he's feeling like he might need to get a job, after that. And so, it sort of brought in like this reality that like, oh, well, if like two people do that, and then let's say I get a client and that client wants like 30 hours a week from me. Yeah. And suddenly like, that's it.
Everyone.
And so it got me to this point of like, how can we really be at this point promoting holistic systems? There was this ideas of like, hey, we just promote it and we get services and people come in and then we can hire folks, right? Like we get clients, we can hire folks. I think there's a case for that, except that means that somebody has to be coordinating then holistic systems, because you can't,
Right.
if there's not enough people who are like really grounded in their, in all of those coordination roles.
Right.
Again, it's like I don't mind it being me, but then that, right, is like that doesn't speak to my problem of short-term financial need, because that's like my biggest thing. So so I think that so then there's this coming out of all of that, right? And what I don't want is to have people, because another way to say it is like is that like we're kind of tapped out of investment right now. Because let's say there's somebody, one of these grants or some person, they say, hey, I want to I love the idea. I want to drop in 25, 30, 50 grand. So you can get this started, right? Well, that's like the internal salary. Like that could be an investment that could get us to like a scale that works. That brings, but that's not here, right? And my investment is kind of tapped out. And what I don't want to do is have to feel like I have to then like hold on to some like agenda around like what Zoe needs to do or what Newman needs to do, or Natalie or Jaquan needs to do. Meaning like, oh, well, you've got to then come in and be this core member, or else holistic systems isn't going to work, or Newman, you can't get a job, or how can you go to Iceland, like you've got to stay here, right? So that's what that can't, or Natalie, make it, figure out what you're doing with your life right now, and it better be something holistic systems. That's bad.
Yeah.
Right. So we know that's not an option. So then the question really, and for me, there's two kind of main questions, which is number one, what do I do to with my energy and effort now in order to solve, my short-term challenges? Do I just say, hey, I'm going to do marketing automation, I'm going to become the marketing automation guy? But then I can't really go through holistic systems if we're not selling services per se. I'd have to, well, yes, yeah.
Got some ideas. I got some ideas. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Don't lose them. And then I have to, start doing my own social, and I'm Rob, the working title now, at least from Zoe, is the marketing automation dude. It's not, I don't know that that's going to play. Or do I just try and sell D Studio products, services, right? Because D Studio has something that is ready to go. So I could just try and, do that. Do I, so that's number one. That's like a Rob question, but I'm putting it out there because it is, tied in. And then number two, what do we do with holistic systems? Because it feels like there is something that's worth keeping, right? And maybe there needs to be an adjustment to what holistic systems is selling now. Maybe we just need to literally drop the services agency part now and just build up the community and say, hey, are there people out there who want to who see this, bullshit and want to change the way we work? And we're going to do it, together. And that's the plan. So, and then we do exactly kind of what we've been doing. I think that we've been modeling it, but maybe we'd have to do that for a year or 2 years. And then, then we say, okay, great. Now we've got this community of people we trust. Now let's put together some services. Maybe we do that for a year. And then we say, all right, now we're ready to launch out to customers. The question there is, what is the incentive to bring people in, and who's going to facilitate that, and then are they receiving compensation? But there's possibilities. I had a call with Alex Crate, from Haifa, who's been sort of my, DAO kind of, lead helper, who's great, and he says, on the horizon, there's Haifa, they're planning, they want services DAOs. They want to badge some DAOs as service DAOs to be able to help other DAOs that come in. They want consultant help, for Haifa. They want, to have affiliate programs, so there's, but that's not here, and there's not money for that now. I think that's it. I think I laid out, the challenges. So Newman already said he has a couple of ideas. Nobody has to solve this problem, but but by all means, I'd love to hear what you think, because it's I don't know what to do.
Natalie, I wanted to see if you had anything going. I've got my ideas sort of written down, but I hadn't heard your voice yet, so I was wondering if you were sort of in on it.
No, go for it, Newman. I'll catch up after.
Okay. It's still, and thank you, Rob, for sort of sharing all this, because this is a pattern that I have seen more than once. And it's basically a decentralizing or an idea-based group that comes together, and that the leadership works hard and invests, and they invest and they invest and they invest, and then they run out of investment, and then it becomes an inflection point, and so I think you're reflecting it with a certain amount, a beautiful amount of awareness, and sort of like you're not lashing out emotionally. I've seen that happen many, many times where they don't see like, oh, you're going on vacation, or you had a thing, you can't do, blah, 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 and then flipping it emotionally. So I want you to know that you're already like a super success.
Yeah.
You passed that test, because it really, I mean, and I don't know, anyway, I've seen that. I just want to mark that you're not doing what I've seen other groups do, which is get into sort of like emotional, like, and not to give a bad, like what I call immature, like it's just like it's your first, it's like what a young plant would do. It just, anyway. So yeah, so I want to highlight, I want to underscore that for sure, and sort of seeing this. But, I thought that we had this inflection point, what I was referring to as Big Tuesday. Basically that Tuesday session where we were like, look, the center can't necessarily hold the way of like creating like a big services DAO with these teams. And, like we had in our mind, like too big of a thing. And that we sort of chose the decentralized route, because that was sort of what was on offer. We're like, okay, each of us, finds jobs, finds, freelance, finds their position. And we would kind of go in that direction. And then being loosely tied to HSC, and those loose bonds, and value chains, like the value of these Tuesday meetings is to be able to sort of like, have some camaraderie and talk about like, the issues about, for instance, Zoe, like, hey, I'm isolated. I can't go on the things that normally give me, energize me, like going on walks or doing crafts, or like, these are freelancer sort of things. So it's just like a freelancer circle. And like you highlighted, Rob, like, yeah, maybe it takes a little longer time to sort of establish the trust and create, like something, establish the soil or the connections, the network, that then something bigger can come out of it. I think you put really good words to it, holding on to an agenda, like, oh, you've got, there's a roadmap, and then you're like, oh no, this is a good roadmap, but it's just, the map and the ground are getting, kind of farther apart. And I think you've got, you're like, okay, HSC, can change. Okay, so that's that part, and now I've got a couple of ideas as to like, what all that might look, what it might look like, because one thing, do you guys remember the web ring? You maybe too young for. So back in the open web time, before there were sort of silos, there was this thing called web ring. And it was basically just like an embedded, might even been an iframe that you put on your website. And then it just said, hey, I'm a part of the permaculture web ring. I'm a part of the ecstatic dance or the Tai Chi web ring. You can, or, anything, domino playing web ring, or, time, project manager web ring. And it would say, oh, you can randomly go to the next node on the ring, or you could go onto the home where it would show, it's like, oh, this is what, people on the web, on this web ring mean, like it was just before, it was sort of like a self-selected directory. This was back in the day before Google, and we were trying to figure out like how to organize all the information, right? And so the big debate was between Yahoo, and Yahoo had a directory so that you would put like what your category of your content was, and then they would put it in a directory tree. It's just like, oh, is it a social? Is it political? It's like Dewey Decimal System. And then the other one, Google, and they kind of won out. They were just like, it's flat. You just search for it. We're going to run an algorithm to decide which one is more important. And then money got involved, and they're like, well, what's more important is who pays us to advertise, and et cetera. But a web ring, like an HSC web ring, could just be like, yeah, each of us has a profile page with a service and an offering, and that could be the onboarding. Like right now we have an onboarding step of like, oh, you come in, you sign up for the mailing list, you go on the roster, you come to a Wednesday, you come to a Tuesday weekly meeting, and that's like sort of establishes your social reputation. So you're not just somebody you're just not a number on the roster on a mailing list, but you're like, oh yeah, you've attended these face-to-face sort of things. And then, the next one could be that you have a web presence, whether it's a profile or whatever, but it links back to HSC and saying, I'm a part of this group, like you're publicly sort of stating, and that becomes our sort of marketing. Okay, so that's the web ring component. And then the next one I've titled Voltron. And I don't know if you guys remember the old cartoon Voltron, where they were all these mechanical animals. I don't know, were they all cats? Were they all, I think they were all like big cats. They were all animals of some kind, but then and they were all fighting, on their own, doing their own adventures and stuff. But then every once in a while, once an episode, generally 19 minutes in, they would come up against the big bad boss, and they'd have to make this bigger super robot that always seemed to end up in space, and then they would, fight the bad guy and win. And then, but the idea is that when those projects, and I think the big project, when the projects come, then there's like a triggering where like, oh yeah, the web ring or HSC comes together. I'm kind of thinking of the mushroom thing, it's like the mycelium's out there, all the little nodes on the network are running, but when the temperature is right and the moisture is right and the shade and the sun is right, mushroom pops up, in order to do something, we create a bigger thing. That's sort of, in my mind, a decentralized way of cooperating and working that avoids some of the pitfalls of kind of trying to figure out what it is that might happen, or putting too much stress on a governing, body to say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we, our strategy, the strategic arm. Yeah. But I think that there's value all around, and that we can, if we focus on generating that value and making it clear, then I think good things can happen. Yeah. That's about it. Yeah.
Thank you, Newman. Yeah. Really appreciate all of that. Thank you so much.
I feel like it is a DAO-like thing. It is a decentralized way of trying to figure out what the decentralized freelance cooperative looks like, such that we avoid the pitfalls of a centralized thing, like that we're not all kind of like building out or spending or investing in the central projects. And I think this is what you are getting to, Rob, is that is like investing in the central, like, hey, look, I'm onboarding, I'm bringing in people, I'm doing, like, I'm managing, I'm writing a weekly report, I'm, you know, setting up things. All this time I could be building out, like, you know, going and finding a client and working on those clients and satisfying like real needs. You know, I'm investing in the central for everyone else and not investing in myself. And there's feelings involved with that, you know, because you have to make choices. You know, like, well, I could do this, you know, and we want to avoid that sort of, how can we avoid that sort of bad feeling, and then, you know, putting people having to make that choice. Like if we set up a system that puts people in that choice, then the system's it's not robust. It's not going to last. But then, you know, how do we build an organization that doesn't put people in that position? That's my essential question. Yeah. And I feel like that's a Web3 DAO thing. And I think it's out there. I think it's coming because of all this technology. All these tools have got to be around here for some fucking reason, you know. You know, so it's like, you know, so anyway, that's sort of some thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I want to hear, you know, well, Natalie shared something in the chat. I want to hear, you know, what she has to say, and Zoe as well. But there is something that, you know, seems like that, you know, speaks to me about that, you know, which is like at a real core level, right? Is that I can feel, you know, as you're saying that, right? Part of this is, for me, I can feel the fear of what happens if I, you know, like walk away as that central, you know, coordinating, you know, figure, right? Because that, you know, I mean, that has been true. And it's also true that I really do, you know, that my real intention is for it to be, you know, decentralized, is for it to be group managed, co-created. But right, there's that fear of like, okay, well, you know, it's right. If I walk away, no, I'm not walking away. No, if I take on sort of like the same role as anybody else, especially, if I take on this role of like, I'm a person who's now has to like concentrate on their own stuff a little more, right? Then what happens, you know, to holistic systems, which is, you know, a fair question. And it's also, right, you can't, it's like, it's almost like, okay, am I doing to myself what I'm saying will refuse to do to you? You know, which is to say, to make you responsible for it. Yeah, right, man.
That's it, man. I mean, I could let that probably deserves some settling. Yeah. That's I think that gets to it, doesn't it? And I do think it's funny because, you know, just the term walking away is kind of like this, like turning, but you're just saying that, like, would do anything that each of us, you want each of us to do, is be able to focus in on our thing, to, you know, to take on responsibilities for your own, you know, livelihood. And that means, you know, not being over invested, or being sort of solid and grounded and resilient in one's sort of self, or like speculative value, meaning that we invest and we're sort of hoping that the investment returns. But if we're overly invested, then all kinds of weird shit happens, you know, like we're just like, oh, this has to happen because I've spent so much in it. but there are other forms of value, and you know, getting, you know, like trying to see what those other forms of value are, you know, like the social value and the sort of connected or other, or, you know, just, yeah, all the other things that are happening for us in life.
Yeah. Right.
But I think I stepped on that beautiful point, which was like you know, doing it, like not asking someone else to over invest while, is that what it was? Is that sort of that key thing?
Yeah. Not asking anybody to over invest, meaning like, you know, meaning to invest more than is in alignment with what they have to give, you know, with what they want to give, what they're willing to give. I think that's the, you know, that's the idea. You know, and then that also speaks to the value, right? Because if everybody's giving, you know, sort of just what's in alignment, you know, with themselves, then there has to be, you know, like then the group itself has to have enough value to remain a thing.
Right.
So then there's another question or fear or whatever, you know, and right, because because I believe in it, you know, and I'm willing to, you know, to still, you know, work to co-create, well, this thing that I feel like really does have value, but how to do that without, right, like me over investing as well, you know, or like trying to force something to happen. You know, how do I have faith, you know?
Yeah.
I'm looking at. You go first.
No.
I was just looking at Natalie's post.
Yeah, maybe the you know, female-bodied folks in the group probably have some wisdom, or you know, or not, you know.
You're gonna say something, Zoe? Why don't you go first?
Okay, I hope it doesn't like change the direction too much, but my mind just keeps thinking of Patreon or something when we're having this conversation, because it's becoming clear that just to keep the community running requires paying someone like Rob to do that. If not a core team, at least, you know, the core member. And I don't know. I used to be super into crowdfunding. I have had some good experiences getting money from people online. But then I just keep seeing like, okay, if we had to get money from people on Patreon, what could we give back to them? And maybe even someone like me, I go into the Patreon and I'm like, wow, if I pay money to Rob every month with Patreon, I could get all these services that help people like me, freelancers, get a more professional web page, help me make my case studies look good, and all sorts, you know, meetings where freelancers can talk together and share their frustrations and strategies. So if we frame it in that sort of like because I know we want to search for value in other ways besides fiat, but I'm a fiat type of girl. So I'm thinking of Patreon. And I do think someone like me would pay Rob every month on Patreon, especially if it's framed in that way, like you get these services every month. So maybe we should do that.
Yeah. And then it does get back down to like, what are the services that HSC provides?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
what are a little, I want some yoga classes, something. Yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that, I mean, and this is the thing, man, I hope that no one here is like got the boot on their neck, because really it feels silly, like talking like this. If you know, you can breathe. It's like my friend said when he was doing DMT, he was just like, I had to just remind myself, is my hair on fire? Can I breathe? Those are the two questions. That was it. You know, it's just like, and if those were yes, you know, like if I could breathe and my hair wasn't on fire, then it was okay. You know, I could, like, everything was fine. But if your hair is on fire and you can't breathe, then you got to change something. Something then needs to happen, you know, like there's conversations and, like, you know, coming up with analogies for Voltron and Big Tuesdays and reiterating web history. That's not going to help you to get your airway clear and get your hair off, extinguished. So anyone listening that's like, if your hair's on fire and if you can't breathe, then, you know, then you're in a different zone. We got to fix that first. But I don't feel that way. I mean, I guess maybe that's what it is. It's like, oh, we want jobs, we want, like, financial security. And it's like an exercise for me to see how like small I can get, or how much stress and weirdness can I get. But all that is to say, it does roll us around to, like, what kind of value we can provide. And I think that's a great way, even if it's funny money, even if it's hypha bucks or seed things. It's just like, yes, because it's the information, it's just the exchange, you know. Then it can easily like flip up to a fiat. It's just a way to visualize the currency, the current, you know, and say, yeah, this is important. What the core HSC, the role that Rob is fulfilling right now, like, that's an important thing. And then when it goes away, we'll be like, you know, like, maybe, you know, or if it slides down a level, and it's just like, yeah, we don't have meetings, or we don't have a weekly thing, or, you know, our Zoom account goes away and we can only do 40-minute, you know, we can only do 40-minute segments, you know, like, then then we would see it, like, when it goes away, then we would see and we would value it, and we would, we would cherish it, or maybe treat it differently. Yeah. I like the Patreon. I'm writing that down as the Patreon idea.
Yeah.
I want to break into.
Yeah. Thank you. Natalie, please.
Yeah. I want to break into, like, a Lauryn Hill song, you know, strumming my pain, or strumming my heart with his song. Yeah, because I hear a lot of myself in, you know, just about a lot of the things people have said here today. You know, Zoe, I'm in a similar situation. I'm in a place where it's difficult to access adventure and community and people. It's a lot of, like, just flat rural highways. I'm currently not employed for like a series of reasons. And, you know, my hair may not be on fire, Newman, but there are moments where I certainly don't feel like I can breathe. So there's a couple things that came up for me. So the prototype, that word is supposed to be prototype. It just came out proto, but in the chat, and the idea, this is essentially what you built and what we all ran through, was the prototype of what this community space could be, right? And that is extremely valuable in terms of its information, what it allowed us to experiment with. And you got to this point of realizing, oh, there's some things that still need to qualify before it can be launched into completeness. So, you know, like I do like that idea, like Newman was just saying about the token. You can begin, that's kind of what Seeds is doing at this current time. So you earn a token that can be later reimbursed when the money is there. So that's possible. You build a community and, you know, you begin developing methods of, you know, just collaborating, so a place to, you know, come and share, have a feeling circle about being an entrepreneur, you know, like just like this shit is distressing me and I need someone to, you know, and then in Reiki's model, you share gratitude. So someone opened up, or, you know, you want to support someone, you send them some gratitude tokens, and then those tokens can be exchanged for seeds. And so you can, you know, make money by just participating in a healing circle kind of thing. In the ideal world. But overall, this theme of not enough money for the people who actually deserve and need and require money for the basics of living is rampant right now. It's blowing my mind. So many communities that I'm a part of, they don't have enough money for land. They don't have enough, just barely enough money. How many people are in jobs because, you know, they don't want to be, but they have no other choice because, you know, you've got priorities, you've got, you know, to address what needs to be dealt with right now. And I think that's kind of what you're facing, Rob, is like that harsh reality of like, what needs to be dealt with right now? Well, I need to pay for rent. I need to buy food. I need to be able to, you know, blah, blah, blah. And so I have like working with this idea of like nature decides is kind of larger than I can really express in a clear way. But I do understand that there is a certain pace to certain evolutions. And I think this week is like World Unity Week, when they gather like hundreds of people and they sit online and all talk about how great they are and how much they, you know, and I get frustrated with those things because it's like everybody likes blowing, you know, heart shit and unicorns up each other's ass, but like what's really getting done? What's really shifting? I don't know if the shift, like it's taking place on such subtle layers that it's like there's still a bunch of assholes in control, and there's still a lot of really crazy systems and laws and like incompatibilities of working with each other as a community. Most of us are terrified of communication and conflict and like looking at ourselves. It's like, how the hell are we going to change such like massive systems? And so I guess that's why I didn't have a lot to share, because it just leads me into this corner of like anger and frustration that I clearly haven't dealt with within myself, right? So it's like, you know, I ask myself, like, what am I resisting? What am I not willing to see? And also, like, what is priority? You know, like what needs to be dealt with right now? Am I taking the time to like just sit and listen and hear that creative piece come through? Because there is importance to what we are doing, and I just don't know how long the prototyping phase continues. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I'll pass it on for now.
Yeah. I mean, I could speak to that, but I also want to hold space if anyone else has, you know, a response or something else.
Yeah, I mean, we talked yesterday, and it mean the simple truth is funding, man. Everything goes back to funding. Period. You know, I think we both agree you got to find a way to funding. That's why I was sending the links, and I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. So, and I'm action oriented too. So I'm not, I'm more about do it. We can talk about it later, So, I mean, all I can see with this is maybe you or whoever will pause this DAO and wait to see what happens when Haifa have those other DAOs that can help out, because you'll have they have members just like I got here because I was in the DAO with seeds. So maybe funding can come through that. Maybe more members can come through that. Maybe some clients can come through that. That's it's not. I don't know much more I can tell you. Real. I mean, unless we find somebody come in here that's willing to be a core member and willing to invest a whole lot and don't mind taking that big risk, yeah. So that's all I can see right there. And that's my two Satoshis, if you will, on it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you, Jaquan. And Jaquan and I had Jaquan was very helpful for me yesterday. We had a really good talk, and I can tell he really knows his stuff, and so it was helpful insight. Just around around identifying these challenges, and then what might need to happen. I have something, there's something, I wanted to share around Natalie, but what Natalie shared, but I also want to read her chat note first. That's what I meant by nature decides, is the funding is backed up somewhere. So I don't know if trying, pushing will change that, but maybe, yeah. Well, I think what Natalie, inspired in me, multiple things, all wholesome, and appreciative of that, but, is like, what is, I think, what she's speaking to is like, okay, well, what is here, and is there something, like there's this prototype that we have, is there something here that, with what we have right now, can be continued, and that might not necessarily be the services, right? But Natalie, what popped into my head as Natalie is talking, right, is, so we're we are this cooperative, and this is co-created entity, is like, oh, okay, like what if, because this also is bringing in this like core question to me of like, what are we putting out on social media? What are we presenting, right? But it isn't so much like, oh, social media. It's like, what are we like actively presenting to the world that we are? And Natalie's talking, and I'm like, shit, I would love for this to be a social post video, just like what she's saying right there, because, thank you, Natalie. I mean, you're speaking to it, right? You're just speaking right directly to it. And honestly, if there is a, sort of target audience for, holistic systems folks, especially as far as like on this kind of team member side, like that's who's gonna speak to, is what you're saying. So I don't know, I mean, maybe the idea is and also what you all are saying, I appreciate, is something where it's like, hey, there's value here, even if it's just like one meeting a week, where we share and where we get information and all of that. I mean, I think that there's already more that's here anyways, but if that's where it starts, that's still value. And, there's also something as far as like, maybe just, depending on what the group, is up for, maybe we just sort of say, all right, well, do we not worry about like selling ourselves as a services agency right now? Do we just like, because there's a lot of like, I can feel there's a lot of, like issue around that, because then that creates, it's like, oh, if we're that, then, we need people and we have to, you know, and then Newman, you have to do this and that you have to do that, right? But if we're just saying like, hey, we're this group of people and we've got something that we believe in, you know, come join us and come share this value, you know, and within that, you know, there's this idea of, yeah, well, you know, of getting referrals, getting more clients, getting more skill share, you know, all these things. It takes, you know, there's some pressure that goes off, you know, that feels like, at least in my body, that goes off, you know, but then there's also with the pressure that goes off, then it's becomes the ability to just say whatever we want to say, you know, because we're speaking to exactly, you know, because if people don't like what we're saying, like that, then that's not like who we're attracting to the group. Would you keep building the DAO and the token? That's, I mean, that's a good question. You know, it's funny, you know, because honestly, like as we've gone on, you know, for more and more, I've been like, you know, like, even though I like I love the DAO idea, you know, in the ecosystem, as we've gone on practically more and more, I've been like, I don't know, like DAO, not DAO, like it doesn't, you know, it's sort of, honestly, it hasn't made like, it's become less and less of a consideration because it's become less and less relevant to like, that the base of what we, you know, of what the goal was, you know, which is to bring in services so people can make money. If that's the business model, then, you know. So if we're doing something different, something, you know, or if we're making an adjustment, you know, into something that really is more decentralized and has at the present time, like a different sort of audience and function, or maybe just like, yeah, then maybe that changes that. Honestly, I would love to screw around with the DAOs and the tokenomics all day. Like I'm interested in a lot of things, you know, I'd be like, I'd love to just be like, yeah, I just want to like learn more about DAOs and facilitate that. And, but, you know, but again, that's another role that requires, you know, some investment. So anyways, all of that.
Oh man. Yeah, that is I'm definitely hearing, and I think I came up, you know, had an idea for my name of my my podcast or newsletter, Patreon, or what's the one, Substack, where the people pay for your newsletter.
Yeah.
Is the practical DAO. The idea of is like it, you know, like starting as a DAO as a community, and then the DAO structure, tokenomics, and, you know, treasury management, and, you know, all the things that make up a DAO, the minimum viable DAO, it like becomes less and less relevant. And I just, that's, to hear, when I hear that, I'm like, oh yeah. But there is something there. I want to participate. I don't know. Yeah. Another thing that I wrote down was something that we all agree, like, that is important to us. We as a group of people, and here is something that we value. Like, what are the values? Like Natalie expressing like this sentiment that really resonates with me, resonates with you, Rob, I know, and that is like you know, as a touchstone for community development, like that can like catalyze a community, you know, in this sort of, and you know, you don't have to say, you know, target audience is a good sort of, you know, I don't think that's, that you don't have to shy away from the target audience talk. But I know that I understand the sort of reticence of that. There's probably some weird connotations in there. But yeah, anyway, yeah, there's something in this, in like the tools that we use, the structure that we sort of take on, and then, you know, how we grow and develop. Yeah. Because it does seem like what has like real, like practical value and what like pulls us away from practical value, like tools. Like I'm like a tool guy. I love tools. And it's just like, well, I actually, do I just love the tool or do I love like making the thing with the tool? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like just doing things for the sake of doing stuff. And what's the appropriate level of organization to get things done? You know, I think that Jaquan, like action oriented, is really something to be reminded. We are a community, and another community that I'm a part of, it's like we're a community of action. The Natalie's sentiment of like just blowing sunshine and unicorns, you know, it is a real thing, you know, the spiritual bypass and just saying, oh, this is fine. And, you know, being afraid of conflict, like that's huge, you know. And you know, it speaks to me. Like I think that those are the things that, and possibly because of we who are here, like that's what we, you know, focus in on, you know. That maybe it's those type of workshops. It's not digital handyman stuff. It's psychological, you know, the sociological side. I called it the softer side and got shouted down a little bit at another community. I was like, well, there are these hard technologies and these soft technologies, and they were like, no, Mr. Patriarchy. And I was like, oh, sorry, you're right. I guess I didn't mean it that way. But yeah, so just call it you know, a microchip based tool and technology and a ritual or psychological based tool or technology. You know, maybe we discover that, you know, doing the psychological based stuff, you know, that like a real value would be that we, you know, we have a healing circle. So it's like the HSC healing circle, you know, your $5 a month goes to, you know, access to a healing circle. And it's minimally organized. It's like a Friends meeting. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Friends, but they just sit. I've never been, but I'm told that they just sit and then every once in a while someone says some stuff. You know, but it's structured and it's packaged, it's commodified or product. What is the word that we say, Rob?
Oh yeah, productized.
Productized. You know, it's productized because that's just how it needs to get into a packet so that it can go on the stream of this thing that we've got going. But I'm open for the creativity and the action. I will share this, it is being recorded, but
you want me to pause? I mean, if there's like a certain person,
yeah, just because why not? Because we can. Let's pause. I wanted to say without the record. That's all I wanted to say, man. That's all I wanted.
I did want to add that even if you or we, whoever decides to pause the DAO, that maybe having some type of email list, because you can keep people on a waiting list. You can continue to get people coming on a waiting list and still pause it down to Haifa get it together, you know, because Haifa was fired by Seas in a way. And then they came and they got money, EOS, whatever, they got money. So, you know, it's not a hopeless endeavor. Things do change. And maybe you should talk to somebody and say, how y'all get that money after Siege fired y'all, you know? But yeah, that's something that there's at least something that can be going on. You can keep building the waiting list while the DAO is paused. Maybe put something on a website, you know, we're just pausing to get our act together, whatever you want to word it. But
yeah.
But that's something. That's just an idea. That's all.
Yeah, thank you.
I love the idea of the mailing list because that's you know, yeah. I think what Jaquan is talking about is just like the tools. Like we're trying to use these tools, and you know, maybe we just like go back. We just go back a level, and we go back to the mailing list. I would love that. As a matter of fact, I'm starting up the Project Catalyst, funding round. Which, if you're out there listening, we still have a month of proposal writing and grant writing, and there's actually lots of funding there. Lots of funding. We could write a proposal. But I'm working with their DAO category for the funding, and they I really want to do just a mailing list. It's just like, let's just have a mailing list. And then here are the reports that have come through. It's just like, we're kind of, what's old is new again. We're come back to like, we just need a text distribution channel that's like open. It can't be shut down, it can't get deplatformed from email. So yeah, I think that's I think that would be good, because really what is HSC is really the website, the email list, and these meetings. I mean, from one perspective, that's what those are some of the key components. This Zoom call, the spreadsheet, the roster, which is really a mailing list or a database. A Zoom call, a database, and a website.
Yeah, and I think that this is Natalie. I think that like what Shaquan and Newman are starting to answer is your question. Does that feel true as far as like what is the minimum viable existence now for HSC, or what's the worst case scenario to shift gears?
Yeah, I think Newman just answered that last or the first question, the minimal viable existence. Kind of like, there's not maybe the whole answer, but there's definitely some components there. Yeah, I guess the go ahead.
Well, I just and what is minimal meaning, like what can we maintain without like going into too much deficit, where we feel like the investment's not going to, like where it becomes fearful or it gets out of too much out of our comfort zone. I mean, I think we're all out of the comfort zone, but it's just like, what's condition yellow and condition red, let's stay out of red.
Yeah. Natalie, what were you?
Yeah, because I imagine Rob, like if you had all of the funds that you needed personally to live, it would be a lot easier for you to like donate your time to this and just like check in and develop things as it needed to develop, right? Like if you were same with, I'm sure any of us, it's really cool, venturing into new potential and new possibilities for community and ways of working, but at the expense of, being able to live comfortably or, and so I guess the worst case scenario is just allowing us to look at if this completely is shut down, that would be, I guess, the worst case scenario. Like, what does that feel like? What does that look like? And then if anything, it just reveals like the most important or the value components. Wet cat. He's like, so it's like all the work that has been put in, right? That would be lost. We would lose key connection points and or even like alternative opportunities to begin even stepping into new ways of accumulating wealth or redirecting, wealth, or even is that the point of it? Is it all around wealth, or is it more around, the community, the consciousness, the education? Anyone else can chime in too, right? Like what would be you know, what would be the worst case scenario of this, and then how to recognize like where's the resistance in just like laying this down and walking away. And if there's a fire in myself that returns, it's like, well, no, damn it, I don't want that other existence. Like, I don't want to go to Shoppers Drug Mart and work behind the till, 9 to 5. It's like, that's absolutely out of the question, right? So that's kind of what I meant by the worst case scenario, is just changing the perspective of like, instead of standing in just standing in a different perspective, just moving to the other side of the cliff and looking over and being like, whoa, what does it look like from here? And then, is it worth all of that work? And or is it just a matter of timing? Like I was saying before, nature decides, like it just takes the right conditions to be at play, and can we recognize what those conditions are, and can we put ourselves in a position to, like, because right now it feels like we're playing a bit of Survivor, I don't know, or like you've been set out into the open wilds, you're out in nature, you've been given like, maybe have we been given like the knife and a couple scratch, we have to forage, and we have to like earn the trust of all these wild animals coming from the corporate world, you know what I mean? Like, or is it time that we just take the time to build that shelter? And like, really, I don't know if any of this is making sense, but I'm just trying to shed a different light on it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah, it's a little like, I can speak to it, but it's a little hard. Like, it's more helpful to have, at least, before that, like to have Newman write and speak to it, and Natalie and Jaquan, and because I'm like, getting shut down. I'm like, but I would probably have the most resistance. I don't know,
Well,
Zoe, do you?
Go ahead, Zoe.
Yeah, I'd like to hear just your thoughts on that, if you have any.
Just going back to Patreon, or what Jaquan said, I feel like due to the issue of a 30-hour-a-week gig coming in and swooping Rob away, or me away, or Newman away, or whoever, and then that seriously threatening or all of y'all, but like the core member promoting HSC, facilitating the meetings, onboarding people. Like, if we can't cover those jobs with at least some investment, I think it is a problem. So I do keep thinking of Patreon or investment or grants, like Newman said. There's some money out there, at least to cover, I guess, Rob, and then maybe other people too in the future. But I think a DAO or a co-op could grow out of that at some point. And in the meantime, it will be a really cool community, and maybe we'll get a lot of people paying monthly like me. I'm totally into that. Because I have like this what do you call it? A thing of guilt that just keeps building up, because Rob's helping me with my shit so much. And I would love to give back financially in some way, because he also, maybe his hair's on fire and he needs some income, and he's giving so much to the community. So like, really productizing this Patreon and listing these services in a sexy way people would pay for. It just keeps coming back to me. Patreon, or at least some way, a membership or something. And then so much can grow out of that, and we could have all these bigger conversations someday too. But just like I don't remember, my brain's a mess. Yeah, maybe instead of like fighting all the corporate scary wolves in the wild, like Natalie said. We could just focus on building the house and getting funding to build the house. And that will involve like people, like bringing in people for meditation, guided meditation. Rob's good at that, by the way. And you know, this is just like a easy MV DAO or MV co-op, you know, community. And that's like something I think we know how to do.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, Natalie. Thank you, Zoe.
Well, just a quick reply on that. I do like the idea of, you know, maybe finding some kind of angel investor that's like, yes, this idea needs to exist. I have the funds. Here's a little like startup, go for it. But what you mentioned about like the being open about, you know, sharing, it's a guilt that makes you want to, you know, help Rob in, you know, reciprocate the exchange. But that's because it's been built up over like a bond of affection, right? Like you have a lot of respect, trust, and like understanding in what Rob is doing. But if I'm just like a person on the website, why would I care about other people getting their websites up? Like just as like, why would I care if other small business people are, you know, getting their service needs met? You know, it's like, I don't know. So it's this weird, like, unless that person is directly affected, like my community wouldn't be able to do what it's doing without the services of Rob, then, or sorry, HSC, like it's,
Yeah.
but yeah, then like, how does Patreon, like, do people just surf on there and like look around for like, where can I put my money kind of thing? Like, I haven't really used it myself, so I just don't know.
You said it exactly. Like they have to be people who maybe freelancers who want to get their business off the ground and need a community to help. People like me, you know? So it is like kind of a niche market. It's not going to be everyone.
We already have to give up front, and then they feel like they've been helped, and then yes, but that's a tricky, slippery slope too.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Well, I think in my mind, you know, it's the value, and whether it comes through Patreon or just comes through, you know, like our, you know, a social or web presence. I mean, I guess I'm thinking of like, what is the message? Like, why is somebody coming, you know? And I think that that's still, you know, like we've been talking about that, like why, you know, and right, like there's answers. I think that minimum, you know, or like that worst case scenario thing is meant to bring in that question, you know? So it's like, why are we here? Zoe, why are you here? Natalie, why are you here? Newman, Jaquan, you know, and then that's, you know, the value. I mean, for me, right, there's, you know, you've been talking about like now I don't know what to call it, the softer side, you know, Newman, or something, but
psychological. I think psychological.
Yeah, the psychological, right? The psychological, the emotional, the communal, you know, like how working with that, you know, and like that has value. You know, for me, I'm always as like well, I mean, I think that has as much value as then the other side for me, which is like the more that practical value, right? Which is something where, you know, I'm not asking for the guilt in it, but where there's something where like I think Zoe and I are like a great use case, you know, because I mean everybody is, you know, we see this, but there's like professional value here, right? So Zoe's like, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to be a social person, you know, then I need like a website, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can whip you up a website, you know, pretty dang easily. And I know like what to do, how to do it, you know, and then so that's, you know, and that's just happening within the community, right? And then, you know, Zoe is like, right, we've been working on social media, right? And she's like giving me like massive, you know, more massive understanding about social media. Like, I don't, you know, like it's hard for me. Like I didn't really get it until last weekend, what she's talking about. But now I'm like, oh yeah, it's the message put in a package that people want to open. So there's perfect, right? And then we're not even talking about, like it's like referrals and things like that. But, so I think that it's all the stuff that we've been talking about. I think that value, that potential is there. It's just, yeah, where do we, what, I guess the question we're asking is like, what is here now that we can be, maintained? Is that
and is it like calling to a part of you? Like, is it fulfilling? Like, is this what you want to be doing?
Yeah.
Not that yeah.
No, I mean, that's a big question, right? And that's been part of my distress, I'm like, as I'm walking around, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I can just be the marketing automation person.
Yep.
And then and I'm like, oh, well, that's, without like this, this is where like the passion lies, is in this, and is cultivating this and bringing this together. And I don't mind being like, okay, I can do marketing automation, or I can do this job or that job. But at least for me personally, like without part of what I'm doing being cultivating something that actually is working towards, whether it gets there or not, but working towards systemic change and working towards changing the way we work together, then it starts to feel pretty empty, for me.
Yeah.
What are the alternatives to finding investment or membership or Patreon membership?
You mean to finding like the alternatives to finding actual like cash money?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the
Grant
alternatives
writing.
are, oh, go ahead, Natalie.
Well, it's just gonna throw out there like grant writing, or if
Yeah.
you utilize your media service, just creating like short videos, just letting people know what we're doing, what we're looking for. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, if we're talking about like, how to get, like money, investment money somehow. And if there's also like, what are we, there's still like, what is the time investment, and then how to use that, right? And is that a matter of like saying, how do we talk, how do we share this with the world and see if there's more people who want to join and have value, and then what does that look like? And, does each person individually have, time, to spend, and, whether, and it might just be like, how do we get that message out to who, and what is the message? Is it initially just like, hey, we're having this is what we're trying to do, we're having these meetings?
Yeah, is it merging with another group, another DAO or something? Because like you said, Haifa will have a lot of DAOs opening up, and they're going to need assistance and direction and stuff like that. But there's no promise necessarily in money in that either. But
Yeah,
there are other people treading these paths.
yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that I know that I was thinking about is like there's GaiaNet, if you all know that, which is like they're not, it's very similar. It's very, very similar to Holistic Systems and what we're doing. I think Holistic Systems, the only difference there, add on, is that like we're really talking about, we have been talking about operationalizing, this professional network of people who want to collaborate. But there's GaiaNet, there's what Jeff is doing. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting to mention Jeff. Jeff is like, he didn't like disappear, but he's, he has his like Us Humanity project, and he felt like he needed to, put his efforts into that. It's kind of it's pretty similar, maybe there's yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. Like, what is, I guess my question, for folks is like, what, we who are here, what feels like the answers to that for you? Like, what do the people here, want to contribute or not, or like what feels in alignment? Do we all want to, is there an answer to that now, or do we need to kind of all think about that and ponder and talk about it next week and say, what do we want holistic systems to be? And if all of us aren't like overextending ourselves, in a way that causes us harm, and putting effort and energy, into holistic systems, like what would that look like for each person? Are we all, do we have a certain fire to, to keep this going?
I'll just say I'm just willing to be on a waiting list at this point, because from what it's looking like, it's just what I said. I just think it's probably a situation where it's probably going to have to pause one way or another, because without funding, it can't work without funding. So I mean, that's the only way. Like with Haifa, whenever it'd be nice if they had, because I'm on their waiting list too. I'm waiting for them to come out with this stuff too. I even applied for their DAO, I think yesterday. But when they do bring this out, just like I came over to this, you can join other DAOs and go on a Discord or wherever, Telegram, etc. Just similar, just introduce yourself like you did, and just bring up this, join the waiting list. It's paused right now, but get on the waiting list, So yeah, so I'm that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm just, you can just put me on the waiting list, and hopefully, we'll start it all over again. And that's my cue. I'm gonna get to my Instacart. got bills to
Right
pay.
on, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Bills to pay. But thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jaquan. I really appreciate it. Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, and for let's just be in touch, and also see what we come up with.
And whenever you can, get me on the DAO. I'm not even on the website.
Yeah, on the DAO. I know the DAO. It's like, yeah.
And I'm not even in.
I know, it's funny. I have, before you told me that, I hadn't actually been to the DAO, like actual platform, for I don't know, probably 2 months or something. Hasn't been in my mind, but all right, I'll work on that, Jaquan.
I appreciate it.
Heck yeah.
Y'all take care.
All right.
Okay.
See you, man.
Bye.
Yeah, where is that? That's the on Nestor or on
Well, that's the DAO platform. I don't even know if you're on there,
Haifa.
Newman. It shows you the level of energy I've been
on
putting
Haifa.
towards specifically like the DAO lately.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's DAO.haifa.earth.
Just reading what
This is
Natalie
great.
said.
This is great sort of talk. We're about to kick off the Project Catalyst thing, and I do have to sort of like get my head back into the DAO space. Bringing in value and like self-awareness, and like what because just what it's actually, Jaquan just said it. You've joined the Discord and you introduce yourself, but what do you introduce yourself as? Like, what value can you bring? Because we are the value. Like, this is a trick that, like, all these products and, the productization of stuff, it's just like, you have to turn yourself into a product, and you're like, okay, that's not natural to me, but I can do it. And and then I can play in the playground with everybody else, and that's fine. I don't think that's going to hurt me. And so I think that it would be cool to say, hey, look, there's this new way of doing things, and here's what you need. You need a profile. You need to be able to introduce yourself on a big, you have to be able to do a check-in so that people can understand where you are and how you want to be used on a team. There used to be this game, World of Warcraft, and you in order to play the game, you had to be in groups. You had to do these groups. They call it LFG, looking for a group, and PUG, pickup group, and you basically had to sort of like explain, you know, like you have to meet people, and you actually used to have to negotiate it in person. And you'd say, well, we're going to run this dungeon, and we need, you know, we've got a healer, and we've got a DPS damage person. We need you know, a tank, and we need a spellcaster or a ranged attack. You know what I mean? It was just like there was because the game had a set, you know, core set way of doing it, and they needed team members, that people needed to know like what they were doing, so that the roles could be filled in. This may go to our archetype, you know, like helping people figure out what their archetype is. Like, really what is it that you do in community, and how can you give value, you know? Like that would be, I think that would help humanity. Like if people just became aware of like what they bring to the table, and get over some of those emotional, psychological, social things that it feels like we've all gone through. And so that's one thing, you know, just sort of answer that question. It's like, what, you know, like what's resonating with me is like, oh yeah, right. You know, like those are valuable things that I can share with folks. And they don't have a lot of, like, I don't want to like put a flyer in the window and say, you know, Newman teaches Tai Chi, or Newman will sit and listen to you, or we'll do a healing circle of one. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't really make sense unless there's a community. So if a community can come together and help establish the space, like that has a value. So you know, that's just, we have value when we come together. It's just figuring out how to harness it in a way that doesn't kill it, you know, how to productize it that doesn't denature it, you know, how to work with it that doesn't chop it up and destroy it, you know, is a real thing.
Mhm.
Because if we chop it up and destroy it, then we're just sort of, you're just sort of making the same schlag that, you know, and it's not going to make a real change, you know.
Up and destroy it.
Yeah. Yeah. So any thoughts on that now, you know, like what do we do now? Or what's in each, you know, your.
Could you shine more light, Newman, on what might chop it up and destroy it? Like
Right.
What's the threat? So I could
better. What is the threat? Yeah, I don't have like a strong sense of it, but it goes back to sidebar. No, turn off the recording. This goes back to what we talked about in that sort of recording part. It's just, it's, you know, I don't know what the threat is, because, you know, nature decides, you know, you know, it is indomitable. Like we do have a will to grow. You know, I was out in the woods, and you could just see so many like things were falling over, and then they just grow. I saw a wisteria vine, and it had grown up this tree. The tree died, fell over, and the wisteria vine was just like, I'm just gonna find another tree that's right here, you know. And so I guess the threat to sort of chopping it up is that it becomes inauthentic. It becomes a job or something, you know.
Right.
There's
I meant, what's the axe to chop it? Like, is it the Patreon and commoditizing ourselves on Patreon, or is that the axe? Does that make sense?
possibly, yeah, exactly. What is the thing that chops it up? Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it may be in the process of like making it fit into something else. It's just like, oh, it has to go through this machine.
Got
And
it.
square pegs and round holes type of thing. I can't remember, maybe it was Kim that was talking about it. Maybe it was Natalie that was like, okay, you know, but we, you know, we are in this unique situation where we can really decide our own thing because we've tempered ourselves with, like, you know, poverty and risk. You know, I don't have health care. You know, I don't have a bank account that I could dip on. I have a lot. I have a lot of friends, you know, I have a lot of friends that are willing to sort of like put me up, and like, you know, my family is still cool with me. You know, like, so like I have like a support network, but I'm leaning on them quite a bit.
Mhm.
And yeah. Like
Mhm.
I want to bring value to the system, and I want that value to be like a unique, an expression of who I am, and not a copy of something else, you know. I think that's what calls me, and that's what resonates with me, because I feel like that's what Rob is doing. You know, I feel like he is bringing something that it comes from a natural source, and it doesn't feel like scam is too big of a word, but it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm you know, I thought that I did a questionnaire and thought this might, not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but it's like, I don't know, there's an authenticity here that I want to, like, you know, follow. I want to follow that authenticity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And does remaining in the maybe decentralized space and getting grants from people, like decentralized institutions, help prevent chopping it up into shitty capitalist commodification?
I don't, you know, it's interesting because it's one of those things, because I had like great experience with the freelance work, like, and I was like, oh, my friends were like, oh, you don't want a job, or oh man, I'm doing a voice, Jesus Christ. I don't mean to do a voice.
Oh, you can
But
do voices.
yeah, I know. It's one of those things that I just don't like it when, you know, but they don't sound like this, but I'm doing a voice so that you understand that it's someone else. You know, it goes along with, I don't know, when I was a freelancer, I was much harder boss on myself than my boss would ever be, you know. That
Yeah.
I would do horrible things, you know. And that's sort of one of the values of HSC, is just like, oh yeah, then you give yourself permission. It's like, oh no, these are the standards, and we've been through this. Like there's like wisdom, you know, it's a wisdom circle. It's just like, what, you know, that the HSC, like, there's a new graduate, and he's like, well, I went to school, I got a job, and I worked it for a while, and I started having health issues, and I started fighting with everybody, and so I wanted to do it on my own, and now I'm still doing that same stuff, and it's like, okay, you know, here are the things you need to do, or books you need to read. It's a wisdom sort of circle-ish thing. But so that's what it is. That's that chopping up stuff. Like if you do this on your own, there's so many pitfalls of doing the entrepreneurial thing. There's a ton of resource out there for it. You know, it's not like it was 20 years ago. There's tons of, you know, channels and things. But I think it might, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I want to get into the innovation and the creativity of it. You know, I want to have fun and build something unique and cool and robust and resilient, something that's better than just the copy of the thing. But this is actually an old discussion between like making like a McDonald's site. It's just like, yeah, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need a website. Like McDonald's will do fine. I want a number 3 and I want it supersized. And can I get a shake? You know? But then there's some stuff that it's like you really need to have, you know, like go through the process and really connect and build something incredible. That's not McDonald's. McDonald's and, you know, super nice French restaurants like we went to last night for my birthday. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh shit. I can't remember the name of the thing. I got a steak, which I thought was pretty good. But she got this like she undersold it. I was like, what is shark? And she's like, oh, it's like a bean stew. And I'm like, oh, okay, bean stew does it. I think I'll have a steak. It's my birthday. That bean stew was so incredible.
What?
It was really good.
That's surprising.
The point is that like there's a beautiful diversity of stuff out there, and you know, I want to get to the fun, creative thing as opposed to just photocopying. But there's nothing. I guess there's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. And creativity comes from wherever. So it's not a slight on anything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's right. Well, okay. I mean, it sounds like you're right. There's a lot of that you're speaking to, like this question of like, oh, okay, what do we do? What, why, like, what value do we provide? Natalie, put into the chat. And I guess that's what I'm also like, I don't have a time limit, and this is very important to me, but I also want to, just note the time that we're, that we're at 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I think, there is this practical, question of a hamburger. There's a practical question of, I
think I'm getting hungry.
By the hamburger, a hamburger. Oh,
Somebody's getting hungry.
There's this, yeah. I mean, there's the question of what, right? What? Okay, then what is HSC? If it's not, if we're saying, okay, well, right now it doesn't make sense for it to effort it out as like, a services agency. Then what is it? And what, like, is it still something, and is it, and what is it? And then what, the we who are here, how what do we get from it? How do we want to, contribute? What is, what do we want to put out in the world? I mean, I could, right. This is like a part of what I do, I think is like, right, is like creating things and building the business, right? So I could say, and this, it's not wrong. It's not like but I could say, okay, well, we just have to like shift, we have to, shift and adjust the strategy, like I'm saying, and say, okay, we put the services thing to the side or down the road or whatever, or maybe never. And we just say, okay, well, there's this thing that we have of value, and we change, what's up on the website, and we promote that. And we basically say, what's our, we just, go through the playbook, right? What's our offer? What is the value proposition for people? What do they, get out of it? What can they, put into the group to help the groups, stick around? We could start putting, there's clear messages that we all know. We all say it every time, several times a meeting when we come here, clear messages. We put them up on social media, and then we start to create this thing. And one person, is, works on in this role, another works on this role. One person is working on leads the psychological meeting, another person leads the Skillshare meeting, right? All that. So that's, like, right, that's in a business sort of venture on standpoint, that's like what we could do. And right, I don't want to do that in a way where, where I'm recreating what I have been doing. Again, not that that's been wrong, but like to now say, oh, okay, well, if that model is no longer, appropriate, or it's not, it's not working right now, I don't want to recreate that, so like, what, so what then, like, what are we creating here with who's here? And is that like, and if that's a pause, what does that pause look like? Yeah, what does that pause look like? What, and not, so I'm not like asking for definitive answers now, but does that sound like I'm like framing the question that it sounds like we're all framing correctly? Yeah, Zoe? Más o menos?
That was a question, right? That, like, what was he saying just now? I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, it's like the question is like where, I guess if in its simplest way, the question is like, where do we go from here,
Right. Okay, good. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's a much more simple way of thank you for making me condense my thing. Where do we, I mean, it's like, where do we
You're
go
your
from
own
here?
ChatGPT.
And what do you, yeah, I should have just put it in. Yeah, exactly. I should, sometimes I should follow ChatGPTs. It's like,
That's hilarious.
yeah, where do we go from here? And what are you doing?
Maybe we could all like write a tiny
Rob.
reflection on it or something and come back with our reflections next week.
GTP.
Rob GTP.
Oh my goodness. Pretty cool.
And then Natalie put
I like
in.
that idea.
Sorry, you're.
Oh, I must have a super delay on my thing right now because everyone's responding like 3 minutes after I say something. But anyways, yeah, I like Zoe's idea of, taking time and coming back. And yeah, I also like the idea, even if we do move into more of a rest phase for this, summertime's a perfect time to do that. Really, you'd rather be outside, and in the winter kick it up a few notches. But even in that slower state, it'd still be really nice to begin practicing like using a token. So even if you're showing up to just these meetings to hash it out for a couple hours, maybe we earn a couple tokens, and then maybe one day those tokens are exchangeable for something of value, and it'd be a cool way to kind of track contribution and something to think about.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, to sort of practice the DAO, some of the DAO patterns, and I don't know if that's available to us through the Haifa seeds.
Probably
sort of
not yet.
We could do it over on Cardano. Just saying, there's a big fund going. Could do it over on Cardano. And they would.
That was great.
I think that might be a fun. I mean, that would definitely, like, the Venn diagram of my worlds would definitely come together. That would be cool. And there's funding for building Cardano DAOs because they don't, they're brand new and the tools are brand new, and they need user testers, basically. People willing to. What's that?
I think Natalie.
I just said that sound. Yeah, it sounds.
Give a thumbs up.
That's cool. It's a cool opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, if the beautiful thing about it is, it's very permissive. There's no, you just get the money. You have to do some reporting, but it's not like you're, it's just doing some work with Cardano ecosystem and could do it. So yeah, that might be something. It might be something to do. I like the idea of, I don't know. yeah, I'm sorry that it's, like we're, going through it. To me, this was sort of that wins that Tuesday where we're like, okay, the central sort of roadmap and the big thing that we would go a kind of a decentralized way and just work with, the individuals and individual value, and then allowing the sort of group value to develop, and then see where that leads, that we sort of put our focus on individuals. But then it could be that we, like, yeah, the individual in the community. But I think my brain's turned into a little bit of slushy. It's kind of in between like cottage cheese and right now. We've brain mush. So yeah, let's
Yeah.
I mean, what I would love to do is yeah. Yeah. Continue to sort of be, to sort of try to come up and do the weekly things. I'm happy to talk to people about HSC. I'm happy to sort of continue to hone my value proposition, and try to hold on to the liveliness of it. Continue to work with communities building in this way, and that have the sort of transformational, innovative, holistic, proposition, or ideal or mindset. Like, try to find people with this mindset and work with them. Yeah. That's my sort of intention.
Thank you. Yeah, Zoe or Natalie, if you feel like you'd like to, I don't know, share a final intention, or now, or any just final thoughts?
Yeah, I kind of second what Newman was just saying, that I'm happy to show up here and support and evolve, the inner workings of this group. I think there is value here. I think it's no defeat to switch gears, because like I said, something is happening on a larger ripple of things, and perhaps it's just out of our control, and by no means anyone's fault or any failure or any lack of pushing or doing, right? So it's just the current state of the way things are. And so if anything, you're being adaptive, which is, highly intelligent, to be able to notice something and shift gears. And it doesn't mean that this is an end. It's, like spirals. You go away from it for a little bit, and then you come back a little bit closer, right? You go away and you come back. The action of a spiral. And so perhaps that's what we're doing. We're on the evolutionary process. And so, yeah, I'd like to continue to hone my skills and really know what I can contribute. I do hear this call for, transformational leadership, space holding, education. And this is something that's needed out there, but what I need to ask is it something that I want to give and contribute and be a part of? So am I doing it just because other people need it, or is it because I really want to be a part of that? Yeah, and then go from there.
Wow, that's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate those words. Zoe?
Sure. Yeah, you guys are really cool. I've enjoyed hanging out with you guys today. I definitely enjoy crocheting in meetings as well, because I feel like I could stay in the meeting all day long. That's a new superpower. And it's good because these meetings are super important. and there's a lot going on that we covered, and I think it was hella productive. And yeah, where it sort of ended led me to think that maybe everyone has sort of a different vision of what HSC could be, or what their ideal HSC could be. So I do say again that I think it would be really interesting if everyone shared their like dream HSC, or you know, viable HSC images they see in their heads of how HSC could be for practicality reasons, or just let the idealism go crazy and, you know, say what you want it to be. I would love to hear all of those, especially because I'm still not the most Dowie type of girl out there. And I never wanted that to, like, you know, cause an issue. But I do have this fear that, like, if we get hella Dowie, like there are pros and cons with getting Dowie and decentralized and, you know, hanging out with those sorts of apps and communities. Like, the pro is that you're in your community with people that you like, and maybe they'll value you more than the general public will, and maybe funding can come out of that and cool opportunities. And then on the other hand, like, if you're going to do a Patreon and go more general public who don't know about DAOs and maybe don't want to set up all these apps and wallets and things, you know, you have a bigger net, and maybe that could mean more funding for the Patreon or something. So pros and cons, don't know which one's better. But maybe I'll like reflect on it and just write a bit this week, and then we could share it next time.
That's a perfect. Yep, I love that.
Yay, I look forward to hearing your, you know, your imagination go wild. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can play It's Totally Possible. It's a fun game.
Yeah. Yeah, I might do too, like the It's Totally Possible version and the straight practicality version. Get Rob an income now, and the core team members as well in the near future. That'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great idea. I love it. Thank you. I'm glad that that all of you are up for that idea. I will do that as well, you know, and then we can share next week. That sounds really, yeah, that sounds perfect. Because, you know, what that is then that's bringing in like a true, you know, that's like a shared vision, right? You know, because then that's not, and then we have to decide, right? Oh, okay, then from everybody's, you know, ideal HSC and, you know, our ideal practical HSC now, then what do we do from there, you know? And but I love the idea, thank you, of, you know, of starting it from that, like that vision, how we envision it, you know, rather than just like, oh, okay, well, I'll do the, you know, I'll write the emails or something. You know, it's sort of like, oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, this, yeah. So I appreciate it. I also just want, you know, I mean, I just want to name, like, it's not, you know, like, it's not like exactly an easy meeting for me. Like, it's not, I have to, you know, I have to do what I feel like is like in truth, you know, and in reality, in alignment. But, you know, it's not easy to feel like, oh, okay, well, maybe this pauses, maybe this just sort of stops, you know. I mean, that is like, I mean, I don't feel, you know, I feel a little, I don't know, nauseous or something, but that's okay. You know, I'm just sort of naming that. That's like, why wouldn't I, you know? And that's not to say that everything is going away. I mean, I think that this is positive. This feels like the right direction, but yeah, right. It's just something I believe in.
Because it's not the unicorns and it's not the unicorns and candy hearts being blown up our ass. Like if shit's, you know, like you're really watching out for us and taking care of yourself, and both of those are really good signs of like a healthy ecosystem, a healthy leader, you know, all of those pieces. So yeah, I think it's in the right dynamic.
Yeah.
Thank you. No, thank
Yes.
you. It's really helpful. It's really helpful. And as I, whatever, binge out on chocolate and I don't know, chips or something tonight. No, I'll remember. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
really helpful
grieving
message. And
is part of
and I
it, like
trust,
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's meaning that the loss of that vision and that agenda roadmap. But soon you'll fall in love with the new one as it spirals around, and you'll see that that old vision and that old roadmap and the new thing, and you'll be like, oh right, it's right here, it's right here.
Yeah, I think it's gonna reemerge. I think we're just giving it more of a, in my mind, a financial foundation, whether it be through coins, tokens, or fiat.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I trust it, and I trust and value. I mean, that's one thing that's feels very true to me is trusting and valuing who you all are, and your thoughts and your opinions on it, and you're seeing clearly. So that is really helpful, right? Because in the end, it's a collective vision. That's the whole idea. It has to be, or else it's
Yep.
or it's not even the thing.
Yeah, right.
So, all right. Well, I
All
thank you
right.
everybody, and
Good time.
appreciate that assignment is sounds really good, or that exercise, or that
Hey.
fun practice.
Yeah, have fun,
Good.
everyone.
I will. All right. Bye, y'all. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye, Natalie. Bye,
Bye,
Rob.
Natalie. Bye, Rob. Bye, Zoe.
Bye.
Talk to y'all soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I'll be bothering everybody soon.
That's a nice ambient mix. If you do need to cry a little bit, Rob, you can listen to that one and
Oh,
get right
yeah.
into it.
Oh, I'm
That's the
clicking.
Yeah.
Tony Anderson.
And then when you're done with that, you can watch this one and laugh your face off. Maybe. I hopefully you do. I did anyways. So
Helpful.
I'm already doing it. Yeah.
Basically a voice-free soundtrack company. So it's where I go to when I want to get my backing tracks for my YouTube video.
Yeah, you with the orangutans, you hit me right where I live, that's yeah, that's gonna be helpful.
great. Okay.
That's like the
Awesome.
YouTube version of chocolate.
Great. Well, we'll talk to you next week, or we'll probably talk to you sooner, but we'll see you all next week.
Yeah,
Cool.
perfect. That sounds
Okay.
good.
See you. I don't know.
Bye.
Yeah,
Bye.
I think we said everything. So good.
Yeah, I think we said everything. I know. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hang up, but we said it all. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to say it again. Like, that was really productive, I think. And I don't think we have to let go of any dreams right now. Just, yeah, I'm excited to hear everyone's like visions.
Yeah, me too. And thank you for that. That's good. We're
Yeah.
we're a group of
I might
dreamers.
still keep working on socials this week too, if I have time for it, I don't think it's, I don't think it's the end.
Yeah. I guess the question is, what are the socials? If we
Well,
I think-
I maybe I should save it for next week, but I do
Maybe.
anticipate the like marketing agency sort of thing growing out of the community,
I think
And-
I
as
think
well as the Patreon funding. That's like it's a good, I don't know, my vision. I hope it happens.
Yeah. It sounds like you have a pretty awesome vision. Yeah. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Money.
Money. Put some fiat, fold that paper.
Yeah.
Fold that paper, put it in my pocket. Yeah. This one,
Cool.
her money don't jingle.
Yeah, right. I just saw one today. My money don't jiggle. I have none.
Whoops.
Whoops. Yeah, that was.
Yeah. What we do is social. Well, you know what? If we decide to earn money from, I mean, there can be other ways, but if I decide to say like, oh, well, if I'm gonna earn money from like Rob Hurwitz, marketing automation, I'll probably have to put out a social channel or two,
Yeah, and you could do that on your own page or the HSC page or your own page and the HSC page collabed. So it's one post.
That's a good question. It's a good question of how to do that. I don't know. Yeah, let's ponder on that.
I say collab it. Yeah. Every HSC post that you're in, you should also be collabed. Your personal page should be collabed. And then all the likes are compiled. It's awesome.
Yeah. But then how is I don't know. Let's simmer on it. I don't want to,
Okay.
I mean, I feel like there's no, thank you for that. It's a great question, but I'm feeling like there's an energy that was like, there's like an energy that was there, that again, like feels very helpful and very positive, and I think that it's probably best for me to like be in that energy, rather than kick in my brain, because that's what's usually
cool,
and sort of feel into it, because my brain,
let's
feel into
do
that
what
possibility.
Okay, you do what your brain needs to do.
No, I'm doing what my body needs to do. I'm turning my brain always I know what my brain wants to do. My brain always wants to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, my brain wants to always be kicking in, but sometimes I have to say like, oh, actually, no, there's some energy. There's some like, now's the time to be in my body.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I thought you were saying you were brain dead and wanted to talk about it later.
Oh,
okay.
no, actually my brain's, I don't want to kick my there's an energy that feels positive, that feels like, from our shared foundation. So I'm like, oh, because honestly, my brain's been spinning for the last 3 days straight. And so I'm like, I finally kind of feel there's some energy in my body and that wisdom there. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry to freak out. I know it contributes to freakouts around everyone. I freak out.
Oh, you're sorry you freaked out?
Well, when I like have a meltdown or something, it contributes to meltdowns in everyone's lives around me.
Yeah, well, you're just if you have a meltdown and it's contributing to other people's meltdowns, then they needed to melt down.
Maybe.
You're not like the boss of other people's meltdowns, you might be giving them permission,
That's funny.
to do what they need to do.
That's really interesting. I appreciate that idea. Wow. You and your wisdoms.
I know. What are you gonna do,
Cool. Well, I'm gonna get out of this room now.
Yeah, you're gonna get out of the room. I love your meltdown. You're just that's wisdom coming in. You're saying like, oh, this is a signal for something, right? And that's part of our collective intelligence. Sometimes it comes through as a meltdown and a breakdown, and because change, like sometimes seeing reality or changing or seeing things we don't want to see is not easy,
Yeah.
And so it's good, and so I want to support you. And
thanks. I want to support you too, because you support me so much.
Yeah, we're supporting each other. I'm supporting you and not being Julian Assange so much.
Yeah, it's this room is all I know. Cool. Well, I'll go to the other room now, and that'll be.
Go to the other room, for your other meetings, and go on your walk and go in your gated community, and and I'm gonna go, I don't know, feel into all this, and I don't know, feel into whatever, cry or watch orangutans.
That sounds great. Yeah. Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, Zoe. I will
Yeah.
see you fighting.
Fighting.
Oh wow, this has all been on recording.
Oh, good. Fighting, everyone.
Yeah.
Fighting.
Fighting.